welcome to the November Technical Committee meeting, which will be followed by the Congestion Management Committee meeting at 10:30. This meeting is being recorded. If anyone should experience difficulties during the meeting, please send a message in the chat box. So at this time, I'll ask Ms. Rebecca Diebel to start the roll call to determine member participation. Rebecca.
Good morning. City of Annapolis.
Present.
Anne Arundel County.
Here.
Baltimore City.
Present.
Baltimore County.
Present.
Carroll County.
Here.
Harford County. Howard County.
Sam Call is here for Harford County.
Oh,
Good morning.
Thank you.
I'm Harvard's here. Sorry, I was on mute.
no worries. Thank you. Howard County. Queen Anne's County.
Present.
MDOT.
Here. Thank you.
Maryland Department of Environment.
Here.
Maryland Department of Planning.
Here.
Oh, thank you. MDOT MTA. And MDOT SHA.
Here.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone? Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. All right. So our first business item today is approval of September minutes from the September 5th meeting. So has everyone on the technical committee had a chance to review the minutes? And can I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
Moved by Hartford County to approve the minutes.
Okay, I've got a motion by Hartford County.
Second by Queen Anne's County.
And a second by Steve, Queen Anne's County. Thank you. And can we have a roll call vote, Rebecca?
Okay. Annapolis.
Aye.
Thank you. Anne Arundel County.
Aye.
Baltimore City.
Aye.
Baltimore County.
Aye.
Carroll County.
Aye.
Harford County.
Aye.
Howard County. Queen Anne's County.
Aye.
And MDOT.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, the minutes are approved. Let's move on to the actual action items. So number 2 is recommendation action on resolution 24/7. Information on this resolution, which involves a request to consider 3 amendments to the 24-27 TIP on behalf of Baltimore City. I'll ask Mr. Keith Kuchar to introduce the resolution. Keith.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And good morning, everybody. As Dan mentioned, in resolution 24-7, Baltimore City is requesting to amend the 2024 to 2027 TIP to add 3 projects to the TIP. 2 of the projects were in previous TIPs, but were not in last year, so they have to be added back in. And then there's 1 brand new project. The first project that was in a previous TIP is the Southeast Baltimore Freight Corridor Colgate Creek Bridge replacement. This amendment will add $2.5 million in construction funds in FY24. The second project from previous TIPs is the Wilkins Avenue Bridge over Gwynns Falls. And this amendment will add $3.8 million in construction funds in FY24. And the third project, which is the new project, is the Baltimore City Greenway Trail, the eastern segment. And this amendment will add $4 million in right-of-way funds from a federal earmark and a state capital grant for acquisition of Norfolk Southern property to construct the trail in FY24. There are no capacity improvements with any of these projects, and all 3 of them have been reviewed by the Interagency Consultation Group, or the ICG, and they have been determined to be exempt according to the conformity rule. Mr. Scott Weaver from Baltimore City will present two of the projects, the Colgate Creek Bridge and the Wilkins Avenue Bridge. And Nick, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this last name probably, but Nick Chopin will present the Baltimore Greenway project. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Scott and Nick, and they can take over the presentation.
Good morning. My name is Scott Weaver. I'm the Chief of the Bridge Engineering Section for the Baltimore City Department of Transportation. We have here the Colgate Creek Bridge, or Burning Highway over Colgate Creek. It's right next to the Port of Baltimore. The project is currently under construction. It's a multi-span structure over a navigable waterway right next, like I said, right next to the Port of Baltimore, and provides direct access to and from I-95 for the port. We had to work closely in conjunction with the port when replacing the bridge. We've done some other streetscape and roadway improvements up at Hollowbird and a little further up Burning Highway to beautify the community. This project was kind of fast-tracked. The bridge itself is 50 years old. It's in poor condition. It has received several very large loads that were carried out over it because the bridge was never designed for excessive loads. It didn't hold up very well. We therefore had to complete emergency repairs in 2014. When we had to replace the bridge, we worked with the port for the new loads for the new bridge. That way, this wouldn't happen again. The City Hall, when the project originally came out, the Baltimore City Hall had applied for a Tiger grant, a federal aid Tiger grant that would they would supply $50 million or $10 million from the Tiger grant, and if the city would match it with another $10 million. As construction started and completed and went on, we had several construction issues, and the project was unavoidably delayed. Because of the delays encountered due to difficulty in construction, the Tiger grant ran out. So we've only been able to expend $8 of the $10 million. So we have a $2+ million gap that we're going to need to fill. And in order to do that, we would like to use our federal aid allocation that we receive from the federal government through SHA. And in order to do that, we have to add the project to the tip, which is the purpose of this. And, as you can see, NTP for construction, there's issues with contracts and means and methods. We find a solution. There's some pile driving issues that we've had. Several of the pipe piles have experienced some issues going down to the mud, and we've had to do some retrofit design of the piers in order to accommodate. Hopefully, we are currently on track to complete the project in 2025. And my project manager is Greg Bauer. This is his personal cell phone number and his email if anyone needs any information in regards to the project.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, we're going to ask for the approval of the resolution after the 3 amendments. If you have any questions on the Colgate Bridge, you can ask them now, but we'll do the resolution at the end.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Regina.
Second project is Wilkins Avenue. Wilkins Avenue, we actually advertised this project for construction. It's located in southwest Baltimore, right near St. Agnes Hospital. It's a single span arch bridge. It's quite old, and it's in next slide, please. I'm sorry, I don't have, thank you. The bridge is, like I said, it's 87 years old. It's in poor shape. We're required to inspect every bridge, as you all know, longer than 20 feet in length, carrying vehicles at least once every 2 years. This bridge, we received multiple letters of concern. As a result, we designed the bridge for replacement, and it's been in our CIP for several years. We advertised, the design was completed. We advertised the job with a new 75-year design lifespan. Got in our parent low bids. As you can see, the lowest bid was 33% over the engineer's estimate. So clearly something was missed. We need to go back with our engineer and figure out what was wrong with the project. That way we didn't end up with multiple change orders. So we need to re-advertise the project. So in order to re-advertise the project, we have to add it back into the tip because it was taken out of the tip because it was expected to be under construction now. The project, as it was advertised last year, the tip FY24 tip took over obviously July 1st. We expected to be under construction at that time. Unfortunately, we're not. We have to re-advertise the project, and in order to do that, we have to add it back into the tip, which is the purpose of this. Mr. Mohammed Al Salihi is my project manager for this. That's his personal cell phone number and his email address if you have any additional questions, but I'm open to any questions that anyone has at this time.
Any questions on Wilkins Avenue Bridge?
Thank you.
All right, how you doing, everybody? My name is Nick Shupin. I'm the Greenway Trails Planner for the Baltimore City Department of Planning, and I'm going to be talking to you a bit about the Greenway Trail Network, specifically the segment we're calling the Eastern segment. We're seeking to amend the 24 to 27 tip to add the Eastern segments of the Baltimore Greenway Trail. This project was awarded a federal earmark in the amount of $2.5 million in December of 22. And there's also a 2022 Maryland State Capital Grant in the amount of $1.5 million to be used for the Greenway Trail at large, but we're intending to put that towards acquisition of this right away. The project must be on the tip to satisfy the NEPA process, which is underway. Next slide, please. Baltimore Greenway Trails Network is a vision for a 35-mile world-class network of urban trails that will link together the diverse neighborhoods, amenities, and resources that make up the landscape of Baltimore City. It will connect parks, schools, institutions, employment centers, and so forth for alternative means of transportation. Trail Network will transform the public realm by providing equitable, healthy, and low-stress access to open space and reliable transportation and recreation for peoples of all ages and abilities. Only 10 miles of trails are needed to link up the major existing sections, which are the Gwynns Falls Trail, the Jones Falls Trail, the Harborfront, and the Herring Run Trail. Next, please. So yeah, right here you see on the right side of that map are what we're calling the Eastern segment. It's the 1.8 mile continuous right-of-way, which was formerly used by the Pennsylvania Railroad, currently owned by Norfolk Southern, from approximately O'Donnell Street in the south up to Federal Street in the north. Next slide, please. I've got here some of the social and community benefits for the Greenway Trails, healthy behaviors like walking, running, or cycling, equitable access to green space and transportation. Only 27% of households in the city of Baltimore do not have access to a car, so this provides alternative transportation options, especially for vulnerable populations such as seniors, children, and disabled. Next slide, please. In 2020, Ernst & Young completed an economic benefits study on the Greenway Trail as a whole and determined that a $28 million investment would return over $113 million in associated local business activity, reduce mile traveled up to vehicle miles traveled up to 8.6 million per year, and avoiding $2.5 million in health costs, specifically due to accidents, among other benefits. Next slide, please. Project scope for this particular tip amendment is simply to acquire the property for this trail from Norfolk Southern. Image here shows the parcels that we're targeting. Includes a linear right-of-way that travels over Eastern Avenue on a bridge underneath Lombard Street and then over Pulaski Highway. There's a short segment of separated shared use path, which would be on Haven Street on the existing right-of-way, and then it would go back off street onto the two segments at the north end of this map, number 3 and 4. And from there, it would connect to another in-development trail segment that follows the BGE utility right-of-way northeast up to Herring Run Park. Next slide, please. This here shows sort of a conceptual right-of-way rendering with possible trail dimensions, amenities that would be built to accompany the trail. and would create destinations and points of interest along the way. Next slide. This here shows our a rough timeline. It's a complex project, a lot of stakeholders and facets. Potential intersection with the red line is not the least of them. So we're thinking optimistically here, but we want to complete the NEPA process and the negotiations with Norfolk Southern by spring, start the engineering and design process thereafter to be completed in early 2025. And we're aiming for construction of the major elements by the end of 2026. And that's what I have on the Greenway Trails. Thanks for your time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nick. So as Regina indicated, all three of these are in the same resolution. So any question on any of the projects? Sam?
Thanks, Dan. A question on the Colgate Creek bridge replacement from Broning Highway. I think this is really more out of curiosity, but the port, I think now there's a heavyweight port corridor, right, that I think uses Broning Highway for permitted loads up to 100,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. So I'm assuming that the port and the city coordinate on that, and whatever the new bridge is being designed is designed to carry those weights that are now permitted. More of a curiosity than anything else on my part.
No, you're absolutely. When we decided to replace the bridge, we went to the port and said, look, what's the heaviest load you got that comes out of here? We need the axle spacing. We need the axle loads. That way, when, if something happens, it goes out. It doesn't, a truck doesn't have to, or a vehicle doesn't have, heavy move doesn't have to go out there, make that right and go all the way down to 695. They can make a left and go straight up to 95 and be gone.
Excellent. No, I was just curious. That's all. I remember that port corridor heavyweight permit from several years back, and I remember that being a pinch point. So sounds good. I'm sure that'll be great to get that done.
The port is very excited about that.
I'll bet they are. Thanks, Dan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, Nicholas, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentations. So we'll now ask that a member move for approval of resolution 24-7 and then a second.
Annapolis moved.
Okay, Kwaku Annapolis has moved.
Anne Arundel County will second.
Thank you, Brian. Quickly then, any technical committee members have any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll now ask if members of the public have any questions or comments on the resolution. If so, indicate you would like to comment in the chat box. Okay, do we have any questions in the chat box, Regina?
None at this time, no.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now vote on approval of the resolution to consider the three amendments to the 2024-2027 TIP on behalf of Baltimore City. When your name is read, please indicate aye or nay. Rebecca, please read down the list of members.
Annapolis,
Aye.
Anne Arundel County,
Aye.
Baltimore City,
Aye.
Baltimore County,
Aye.
Carroll County,
Aye.
Harford County,
Aye.
Howard County,
Aye.
Queen Anne's County,
Aye.
and MDOT.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like that motion is approved. So now we're going to have a presentation on the critical urban freight corridors. Mr. Youngman Choi from MDOT-SHA will present information on the freight corridors and explain the criteria and methodology for selecting an additional 25 miles in the Baltimore region.
Okay. Hi, my name is Youngmin Choi. Let me adjust my table for the presentation mode. And I guess I better turn off my screen. Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Youngmin Choi, a transportation engineer in the Innovative Planning and Performance Division at SHA. So today, I'm here to introduce an update regarding the mileage designation of critical urban and critical rural freight corridors under the new legislation for the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board. First, we will review our 2017 work, including background, requirements, and process. Then I will introduce the new updates under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, and we will discuss how SHA and BRTB will coordinate for this designation. Lastly, I will share our timeline for the new designation. In 2016, the FAST Act established the National Highway Freight Program to improve the efficient movement of freight on the National Highway Freight Network, NHFN. And these NHFN subsystems are primary highway freight system, other interstate portions, CRFCs, and CUFCs. The CRFCs are roadways that are not in urban areas, but it serves the function of connecting to freight generators and providing access to the interstate. CUFCs are the roadways in urban area and do the same function as CRFCs. But it should be noted at this point, since the interstate is already included in the PHFS and other interstate portion, there are no interstate segments within the CUFCs and CRFC subsystems. And let me explain why this corridor designation is important. The first, these critical freight corridors provide crucial connectivity to the NHFN. Second, the states can direct resources toward the improved system performance and efficient freight movement. And lastly, the designation of critical freight corridors contribute to expansion of the state's NHFN. The project located within the corridor are eligible to apply for funding through the National Highway Freight Program, and these projects include a range of potential initiatives such as PE, design, road widening, truck parking expansion, and bridge projects. And please note, while projects within those critical corridors can access funding through the National Highway Freight Program, the alternative funding sources such as state or local funds can also be utilized to support this project. And SHA and BRTB already completed this process in 2017 under the FAST Act. And during that time, Maryland's CUFCs had a maximum mileage of 75 miles, and they were distributed amongst the MPOs. And considering the BRTB's status as a large MPO, a 25-mile CUFCs was assigned. Under the new IIJA, the mileage cap for both the CUFC and CRFCs in Maryland has been doubled. The eligibility requirements remain the same as those outlined in the FAST Act. And as a result, the BRTB will now have a total of 50 CUFC miles. The eligibility requirements for CUFC are as follows. The road must be located within the urbanized area in the state, and it should serve as the last mile segment for the freight transportation. And for CRFC, the requirements include a rural principal arterial roadway with the minimum level of truck traffic. They should provide access to freight generators, and they should also connect to the interstate system. And I would like to explain our coordination plan with BRTB regarding CUFCs. SHA and BRTB will lead the designation process, and to help facilitate this, SHA has developed a methodology to identify eligible segments utilizing the new urban area boundary published by the US Census. And these eligible segments can be accessed through an online dashboard. And we have conducted a meeting with the technical staff at BRTB to review and select the segments. At the end of this process, the final designation letter to FHWA will be drafted by BRTB. For CRFCs, MDOT will lead the designation, and we will work with our regional planners and district staff to identify and review the segments. But still, for those segments on the MPO's boundary, we will ask your staff for concurrence. And this is a snapshot of our online dashboard. It provides a visual representation of both eligible and existing critical freight corridors. It also highlights the key freight generators such as ports, grain elevators, and airports. And here's a more detailed version of the map. The BRTB staff and I will evaluate the individual eligible segments based on their significance in freight movement. Our consideration will include factors including the truck traffic, the proportion of trucks on the road, truck volume growth, and presence of any project in the vicinity. Last but not least, our timeline. So we will coordinate with the technical staff at BRTB until the end of this process. And once all the critical freight corridor mileage are reviewed, we will go through the board approval. Then we will draft the designation letter and information packet for FHWA by end of March. Yeah, so all right, that brings us to the end of presentations. I appreciate your attention. If you have any question or further clarification on any point, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much, Youngman.
Yes, thank you. So for the members, if you're wondering how we're going to proceed, Youngman has talked with Keith Kucharik and I. We do have the methodology documented and a list of the possible segments. Keith will facilitate some discussions. We'll work with Tech Committee in a process to select which new segments out of the list that SHA has provided to us. So for today, this is sort of background and introduction to the topic. If you have any questions at this point, please feel free to ask.
Regina, this is Keith. I just wanted to point out too, and I don't think Youngman mentioned it, that even though we do have a 25 miles currently, we don't have to keep those same 25 miles when we move forward. We could pick 50 completely different miles. We could mix and match. So as we move forward, we don't have to keep what we have. We can change that around. So just wanted to point that out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay, I think we're good to go. Thank you very much for the presentation. We really enjoy working with you on this, Youngman.
Thank you. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, our next agenda item is our UPWP activities. Mr. Don Halligan and Mr. Keith Kucharik will share on the status of the Transportation and Land Use Connection grants. Don?
Good morning. Don Halligan, BMC. Here today to talk to you about the Transportation and Land Use Connections Competitive Grant Program. It's a bit of a misnomer calling it a grant program. It's actually a program that provides technical assistance to local governments to allow them to advance some of their alternative transportation ideas. You can go to the next slide.
It's doing it by itself.
Yeah. So we just completed round one, or very close to completing round one. It was originally anticipated to be a month time period. It's been 18 months. So it's taken us quite a bit longer than we originally thought. But we had
Will do.
We have two projects in the queue for that. The first one was in Baltimore City. Just as a refresher reminder, we did get three projects, and the two that we selected were the two standout of the three. So this is the first one in Baltimore City. It was on Wabash Avenue. You hit the clicker there. You can see the corridor in blue. It goes from basically Reisterstown Metro Station down to the Wabash Metro Station along Wabash Avenue in Baltimore City and northwest part of Baltimore City, and connects some existing trails that they have. This is would be a shared bike path. You can click that slide.
Oops.
That gives you a little sense of what we're talking about. You see the rail line there. The Wabash Avenue is actually on the other side of that of the railroad track. So that is the metro line. Next slide. So this was going to be a preliminary design for 2-mile separated bike facility along Wabash Avenue. It was adopted in the city's separated bike lane network plan in 2017. Again, it connects metro stations, and the city, what took extended amount of time. The city hadn't been out there really talking to the community about it. So many of the community members were surprised. They had to hold several public hearings to discuss the project. But I think they're finally bringing the city, the community out there along. It was completed in the fall. We developed several typicals for the Wabash Avenue facility. We are still awaiting a final report. That's an example of some of the work that was done by RJM, the engineering company. The second project was in Annapolis along Bay Ridge Avenue. If you want to click the slide. That. You can see down on the left side where Bayview Avenue is. It's that reddish orange color there and south of Spa Creek. You want to click the next slide. This is a image along the corridor, give you a sense of what the city is trying to do. They're looking at putting in a shared facility, protected bike facility within that constrained right of way. Next slide. The project developed some guidelines for them and concepts along that corridor. It's almost 2 miles for protected bike lane. They wanted to use that as a typical to be used throughout the city, and do some feasibility and be proof of concept for protected bike lanes in Annapolis. It was approved by their planning commission, and here's some of the products that we produced. The report on the left it describes the design guidelines, and then there were some eye candy and typical segments in the report on the right. Here's an example of some of the diagrams that were done by Tool. So we have two contractors, one RK&K and the other is Tool Design. RK&K has RJM as engineering. We want to talk today about round 2, and Keith's going to take the reins over from here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Don. So as Don said, we are getting ready to kick off the second round of TLC projects. Most of you are probably familiar with the program from the last round, but just as a refresher for those those that are not familiar, I'm going to briefly go over the program. I'll give you a little bit of the background, eligibility requirements, types of projects that are eligible, the application process, and you know, how we score the applications. The TLC program is intended to support local governments with planning and preliminary design of projects that will provide enhanced transportation access and mobility. So the goals of the program is to really help revitalize communities and create activity centers and help with the movement of goods and services. Projects in this program will provide additional travel choices and better accessibility for everybody. Projects will provide increased opportunities for communities to live, work, and play. As Don said, we do have 2 consultants already on board to provide technical assistance. So the projects have to fall under specific categories, and they must fall under one of these focus areas. I think you might want to go to the next slide. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure where we're at on those slides. Anyway, the projects focus on multimodal transportation options, transit-oriented development, land use enhancements and activity centers, access to transit, regional trail connections, climate change adaptation, and equitable access to vulnerable populations, and projects that are in transit-oriented development areas get extra points on their scoring. So who is eligible? All the local jurisdictions who are voting members of the BRTB are eligible. There we go. I think now we're on the right slide. We do encourage interagency active partnerships, so and interjurisdictional partnerships. Applications must include documentation of local support for the project. We don't want to get into a project only to find out that down the road that the community really doesn't even want the project. So we would like to have good, clear documentation that the project is supported by the community. Technical assistance from BMC and our consultants is for planning and preliminary engineering, and that would be up to 30% design plans. This program does not include funding for final design or construction. Next slide, please. So projects are awarded up to $100,000. Typically, we'd like to see projects completed within a year, but as Don mentioned, certain things happen, and we don't always get it done in that amount of time. So next slide. Oh, we took out the scoring criteria, I see. So yeah, Don and I will be happy to answer any questions if you have any about the program.
So Keith and Don, can we share with the tech committee, are we opening round 2, and where can members find the applications, and is there a deadline?
So I don't think we've established exactly when we're going to open it up, but it should be relatively soon. I would think by December we should have it open up, and I think, you know, roughly a month or so for jurisdictions to get their applications in. So we hope to have something moving forward in the beginning of the new year.
Okay, so
Does
with
sound
this
right,
back,
Don?
yes, with this background, members can be thinking and lining up possible activities. So that gives you some heads up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're gonna move over to Mr. Todd Lang. We'll open discussion on the upcoming FY 2025 UPWP addendum.
Good morning, everyone. We have about 15 minutes before the start of the congestion management program committee, so I will go through these presentation pretty quickly, but this is just to prime the discussion about potential focus areas for our upcoming 2025 Unified Planning Work Program. So if you could flip to the next slide, please. So just as a reminder, we do an annual work program for the Metropolitan Planning Organization known as the BRTB. This program's federal transportation funding and local funding for various topics, both for staff for the BMC, but then we also set aside some money to do special studies that are identified by the BRTB. So the schedule goes very quickly. You know, this late period of 2023, we utilized some money to go to the AMPO conference and different staff members and different tech and BRTB members to the AMPO conference. Hopefully they brought back some ideas, and we've translated some of those into some potential topics. We're going to present those today, but ultimately this needs to result in a draft at the February 6th, 2024 technical committee, where we will present this draft and ask for a release for a 30-day public comment period. We'll then get public comments and translate this back into the April meeting, where the elected officials on April 19th will approve the addendum to the 2024-2025 UPWP with the new budget items. And then we submit it to our federal partners, and ultimately this money becomes available in July of 2024. Next slide, please. So we've surveyed both the core, which is our new public advisory committee. We've surveyed different BRTB members and then also staff on potential projects. So these would be projects that likely would be consultant-based. We are taking some of the comments from the core, from staff, from members, and building it into our staff work program. But these are ones that we identified really could be potential consultant activities moving into 2025. They are in no particular order. This slide we will be sending out just to make sure everyone has this, but we're going to be doing a survey of the technical committee members to see which ones of these topics you have most interest in. But then we'll also provide a blank slot in case there are additional projects that you would like to be considered within the UPWP, and we'll report back at the December meeting. So I'll go through these very quickly. Next slide, please. First suggestion was kind of building off of our recently adopted long-range transportation plan known as Resilience 2050. We had a number of goals that were set as part of that long-range transportation plan, with discussions like mobility and accessibility and safety and security. And we had kind of broad strategies for each one of those areas. But we think we could go into a little bit more detail, try and understand what are the baseline conditions that go along with each of those goals and where do we want to go in terms of potential future conditions. We could go through kind of goal by goal to talk about where we want to be as a region. And we could include some pretty significant public outreach and surveys to try to understand what the public thinks about some of these individual areas. Moving on, next is a topic that's been kind of on the back burner for the past couple of years. Our Transportation and Public Works Committee has been doing a lot of training for traffic incident management. And they've been training emergency responders. What we're looking for is to set aside some money to ultimately have a traffic incident management conference where we bring together all of the first responders and we talk about safety, safe and quick clearance, and communications as part of the process. It's been a recommendation for a number of years. We think it's a good time to do it considering the renewed emphasis on incident management within the region and the state. Next one is long-range transportation plan scenario analysis. We can start looking again at a number of different topics: land use, investments, emerging technologies, incentive and pricing policies. Give us a little bit more time as opposed to being right under the gun for an update of a long-range transportation plan. And we can include some of the areas that were suggested by some of the public in the recent comment period during the last long-range transportation plan. Next slide, please. Another item we identified as part of the update of the long-range transportation plan is that our current scoring system really focuses on large highway and transit projects, but we don't really have a great scoring methodology for some of the smaller projects, some of the bicycle, pedestrian, and alternative mode projects. Also, we don't really have a great scoring system that's designed for system preservation projects. So we think we could take this time before the next update to really kind of bulk up our scoring methodology, make sure it also includes different items for things like equity and some of the other areas that have been suggested as part of our other recent focus area topics. One product that was suggested by our local governments, and there's interest with the County Engineers Association of Maryland, is to look at streamlining our local project delivery and tracking processes. So what this would look at is each one of the local governments has a Department of Transportation or Public Works. Very similar to how we looked at the practices around traffic impact studies, what we would do is do a survey of all of our local governments in terms of how they track project milestones, how they do financial reviews of these individual projects, including tracking A&E contracts or architectural and engineering contracts. We then can look at some of the best national practices in some of these areas and recommend improvements, and potentially even do cooperative solutions to try to make our project delivery process a little bit more smoother. One of the areas that is very important is our regional travel demand model. That's known as Insight. We do have a freight modeling component within Insight, but it is a little old in terms of its data. So we do need to update the regional freight modeling system with the new freight analysis framework version 5 and some other local traffic counts. Also trying to include the new 2020 traffic analysis zone structure. Next slide, please. Also, an internal piece of work that we need to really update are two of our projects. One, the building permit database system, and then the master network that the travel demand model is based on. These were developed a long time ago in old legacy software systems. Unfortunately, a lot of the programmers that worked on those individual systems have kind of left our organization. So we would like to try to update them, potentially into our standard Esri GIS format system. So it'd be a lot easier to use. It'd be a lot easier to share with our local governments. And when we need to do updates, we don't have to kind of go back into those original formatting languages. Then another topic that was suggested is with the explosion of local discretionary grants from the IIJA, we know that our local governments are challenged in terms of trying to put together these different types of grant programs. We could look at BMC staff support to try to assist with local discretionary grant programs, and or hiring a consultant to help support some of these different types of discretionary grants on an on-call basis. Also, we know that our local governments are now being asked to start running program or financial programs for discretionary grants in the two federal award system financial tracking system grants, the Federal Highway FEMA system and the FTA TRAM system. So we could get support for local governments and build our capabilities here at BMC to try to assist the local governments as part of that process. Also, we are recommending the continuation of funding for some of our longstanding projects, including what you just heard, the Transportation Land Use Connection Grant Program, some of our training of our locally operated transit systems, including technology support, and one that we have not yet kicked off, but we're about ready, which is the Transportation Planning Institute, to try to again build the knowledge base of local transportation planners within the region. So we're going to send out a survey of all of these different items to make sure that we get your ideas of which ones you'd be most interested in. And if there's a topic that we did not include, we will leave open a slot, and we'll bring this back to you in December with somewhat of a firm recommendation where we can have a real reasoned discussion about the upcoming UPWP. So with that, I will turn it back over and just see if there are any quick questions. If not, I'll turn it back over to the chair so that you can gavel out this meeting and gavel in the CMP meeting. Thank you very much.
I don't see any questions, Todd. Thank you for that detailed overview. No? Okay. All right,
Dan,
so
if you want, we have 2 minutes at least. If you want, under other business, to mention those two MDOT activities, you have time.
well, yeah, thanks for putting them on the agenda. So I think that covers it. I think a lot of folks know the plans out there. We're taking comments till November 20th on both the Maryland Transportation Plan and the statewide bicycle pedestrian master plan. Or before the 20th would be helpful if you get comments in if you haven't done so. So that's on our other business. The next technical committee meeting will be virtual on Tuesday, December 5th. Is there any other business to come before the technical committee today? Hearing no other business, I'll ask for a motion and a second to close the technical committee meeting.
Moved by Harford County.
Okay.
Seconded by Baltimore County.
Thank you, Harford. Thank you, Baltimore. Deborah. We'll close the meeting and we'll start the congestion management meeting. Thank you very much.